Citizens are threatened by the loss of their middle class, by the loss of their sovereign borders, and especially from elites of an administrative state and globalism that would surrender our sovereignty to an unknown body of world experts or technocrats. There are 2 million people scheduled to cross the borders of the United States between Mexico and America. None of them are going to enter legally. No vaccinations for COVID. There's going to be no tests for COVID, solely for the purpose of enhancing the progressive agenda and the Democratic Party. We have no border, and there is no immigration law. If we look more importantly at the middle class, we are emerging from a pandemic, a population emerging from quarantine, an already inflationary cycle where we were not producing goods and services because of the quarantine, or the population was not growing at a vast rate that would justify printing more money, and yet that's what we're doing. And the result of it is, for the first time in 30 years, we have an annual inflation rate of somewhere between 4.5% to 7%. Once interest rates go up, people will not be able to pay for these inflationary prices for cars or major appliances or home. They'll stop buying, and then we'll have a recession. We're also in the middle of something I don't think any American has ever seen before, and that is a new woke movement. What wokeness says is, according to one of its architects, Professor Kendi, and to the creators of the Black Lives Matter movement, is simply this: because of discrimination in the history of the United States, it really can't be saved. As Professor Kendi said, to stop discrimination, you've got to discriminate. We now have to discriminate by promoting people on the color of their skin in proportions that are larger than their percentages of the population. As I speak, we have people in confinement who are apparently charged with organizing a riot or an armed insurrection. The media told us that. The investigatory bodies told us that. The Biden administration told us that. But here's the problem. No one has been charged with conspiracy. No one has been charged with racketeering. No one has been charged with organizing an insurrection, because it was not an insurrection, as the FBI has recently found. So what am I getting at? I'm getting at the equal applicability of the law and the administrative state's execution law. We had a 120-day riot that had just finished, and that was the summer of 2020. In 120 days of rioting, a federal courthouse was torched. A police precinct was torched with policemen inside it. A historic St. John's Episcopal Church right across from the White House was torched. If anything, it was called a legitimate protest against the Trump administration. It was much differently portrayed in the press and by the administrative state. We've got to remember that there is an agenda, an international cosmopolitan agenda by very wealthy people, very sophisticated people, very educated people. And that's something called the Great Reset. Klaus Schwab, the architect of the Davos Group, who discovered, created, inaugurated the idea that all of the world's luminaries, the best captains of industry, the best Silicon Valley architects of the internet, social media, the most impressive military leaders, the most impressive politicians, they could all assemble at Davos, Switzerland, among friends, and even though they were of different countries, they all were so enlightened that they could agree that the world was getting too hot. And there had to be an international body that overrode legislatures or dictators or theocrats or democracies or republics. This group now is very earnestly trying to fan out through their respective countries to harmonize all of the nations of the world to turn over their sovereignty to the select group. In terms of globalization, the COVID-19 pandemic has been an opportunity for globalists to suggest that we need more centralized international and global power. We have a lot of politicians who feel that under the cloak of fear and national quarantines and lockdowns that they can change the system. And therefore, Governor Newsom in California said that perhaps during the COVID pandemic we can have a more progressive form of capitalism in the manner that Klaus Schwab said. Hillary Clinton said, perhaps during the COVID lockdown, it's an opportunity to get a single health payer or more ambitious government health care plan. I think it was Jane Fonda, the actress and occasional Davos attendee, who said, thank God for the virus because it was a mechanism to get rid of Donald Trump. We've outlined all of the challenges to traditional citizenship, but one thing is pretty clear, that a majority of Americans respect and want to keep the Constitution as it is, and they feel that they're the luckiest people in the world because they're American citizens. As long as we remain the majority of Americans and remain vigilant, the power under our system is in our hands.